Everybody, Carm Capriato, Tunnel Academy number and 48. Good to have you here. We're going to talk family business, the dads. And what's that got to do with the importance of what we do in the podcast? Well, it was probably about 4 or 5 weeks earlier that we had both sons on. Let me introduce you to my panel. Charlie Marcotte is here. His son Andrew was on with me at that time. And he's president of American Pride Automotive 5 location operation. And it was great to have Andrew on that time.
That was a great episode. Thank you so much for allowing him a platform to share his story. I really appreciate that.
Thank you, Charlie. It was great. Charlie's been on with me before. Good to have you back. And first timer, Paul Campanella, Campanella's Auto and Tire Center, 5 locations, Delaware and Pennsylvania area, right, Paul?
Yes. Thank you for having me on. This is a little unnerving, I've not done this before, so this is a first for me, and I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, son Anthony was on episode 344 with Andrew, and I met Andrew in the flesh, I think back in June of this year. I was invited to a little gathering. Uh-huh. And Charlie, are you as big as Andrew? I mean, he's what, 6 foot something?
None of us are as big as Andrew. He's 6'8". He carries a different level of gravity, is how I explain it.
Great story. Well, look I want to tell you why you're here. There are fathers who hope to pass along their business and consider what they want to know about how to do that. We're going to discuss that today. That the child enters with a role, an appropriate skill set. Wow. I mean, you've watched the child grow up and you've always known in your bones what they could or could not do. It depends on what they want to do and what you want to do and how you mold that together and how you can help a child decide and what a handoff could look like and a whole lot more. So stick around. It's going to be great. First of all, high fives to our great sponsors. Want to win over younger customers? We'll show them the repair process. Engage with live chats and offer mobile payments. Unlock the secret to success with getshopware.com, revolutionizing the way you connect with the next generation. And trust in the aftermarket supplier that makes the parts that cars are born with. With over 100 years of OE heritage, Delphi Technologies quality parts gives you peace of mind. Learn more about Delphi at delphi.com. Hey, if you're watching on YouTube, please subscribe, give the video a thumbs up, and thanks. YouTube, remarkableresults.biz, every podcast listening app that we're on. And don't forget, listen to learn just one thing. Hey, guys, we got to jump in this thing. So, your child has an interest, Charlie. What do you do to bring them on? Oh, big question.
So timing is everything in any business decision. He has an interest, at what level? I think that I've taken the approach in the past of never making something too easy. Everybody has to earn their position, and there's never a better time to start that transition than right now. Where you place them within the company is a totally separate issue, but starting early, even if it's starting slow, starting early, I believe, is the best answer to that question.
Boy, I got a follow-up, a big follow-up. I don't know if you heard that, Paul, but he said, never make it easy. That's heavy. And is it that you kind of outline what a career path could be, the training that you want that person to have? It's too many people say, hey, I joined the family business, nepotism rules. And, all of a sudden they've got a title that's wrong. They have a position that they haven't earned. And sometimes by just closing your eyes and being blind to that, it not only can hurt the individual, but the business.
Well, I believe that as business owners, we're always looking to set our people up for success, whether it's an apprentice, a new employee, and certainly our current employees. Bringing on somebody who just may take over the reins one day is a tremendous responsibility, not just to them, but it's also a responsibility to the rest of your family because it could be devastational. But within the company, you have a responsibility to all of the employees, and bringing that person on, setting them up for success, secures the future and life of many other people. So it is a tremendous opportunity.
It's a big picture. You're talking about a much bigger picture than, hey, wow, I got him off the street. I got him out of the basement.
There's been a few times where we've heard other owners say, they'll even say it, I created a position for my child. And whenever I hear that, red flags go up. If you're creating a position, I could just go on and on, but that's always a dangerous start.
Okay, Paul, I got to go to you. Here's a guy who started his business with $132 in the bank. Am I right, Paul?
Yeah, that was a interesting day, that's for sure. I mean, I ran everywhere, and I don't even know what time I ended that day, but it was a exciting day for me.
130. It's a great story. So
Yeah.
you got to have the right role, and that aligns with their skill set, Paul.
Yeah, I remember when Anthony came, into the business, all my kids had to work in the business. Even my two girls, they would have to answer phones, they would have to shuttle drive, they had to earn their way, they had to pay for their gas, they had to pay for some of the things they wanted as a kid. And so they all had some involvement, and they were all roles that were needed. But when Anthony talked to me about, hey, look, Dad, I'm falling in love with the business. And I kind of told him, hey, no, you don't want to do this. You want to do that medical thing. He's, going off to school to be a biological major at the University of Delaware. And then he, when he got done school, he's like, Dad, I'm passionate about being part of the business. And when they say passionate, you have to let your kids follow their passions. And at that point in time, I'm like, all right, well, guess what? You're going to be taking a whole new line of learning. You're coming into the office and you're going to start to learn some of the office positions and see how this is done. And then surely with the right coaching, moved him up, and he earned every step of the way in the industry from I can remember when he was 12, 13 years old, painting parking stops and cutting grass, up to he could write tickets and write service so fast. And actually, I didn't even teach him a lot of it. I often say he was paying attention when I wasn't looking, because he came out of his shell. He was very quiet in the beginning, and before I knew it, I didn't have to introduce him as that dad saying, hey, this is my son Anthony, say hello to Mr. Such and Such. He was already going over and putting his hand out, and I could see that he had seen my position and how I was with the public. The public and being part of that was what he really fell in love with.
Is it that we as fathers have high expectations, or the child has?
I didn't have any expectations for him in the business. It was like I didn't think he was ever going to come into it. And when he said he wanted to be part of the business, and he really took on some important roles and really started to take the reins, he was writing service and doing stuff from a technological side that I was like, wow, I could never would have thought that. I couldn't get behind the computer now and do what he does. It's crazy.
Well, you gave up.
Maybe.
It's like Tracy came on and she kept taking work from me in so much of the production side of our media company here. And it's getting to the point, Tracy, please don't listen to this. It's getting to the point where she's making it a little easier for me to do certain tasks. And here's the deal, Paul. The minute she asks me hey, Dad, could you do this? Sure. And then I have to remember,
how do I get into this? How do I get into this software, or how do I get into this? And, we've changed a few things, and he just glides through it like it's nothing. And you know what? I let him roll with it. He brings me the important stuff and asks me for advice from time to time, or presents stuff to me that's important to me in the business. And I'm letting him roll with it. He's doing a good job.
Charlie, the high expectations that I just mentioned before, I mean, should dads of children, be it sons or daughters, create the higher expectations and let your child know?
So I've seen it go wrong when a person has a high expectation. If you set the bar too high and you're holding them to such a high standard, you can remove, say, Anthony's passion, because you're making it unobtainable. I mean, ultimately, our children would like to please us. That's kind of the root of a child-parent relationship. They want to be pleasing and they want to be respected. If we make it too difficult in the way of us being satisfied, they will lose interest because it's seen more as a failure. Now, while I did say make it hard, I'm talking about the mechanics of joining should be difficult. But as far as the emotional side, I would be very careful with the picture that's painted and how we set them up for success.
I'm an Italian. Paul, you are too. And I never forget that when I did join the family business, of course, I had to sweep floors and I had to do a ton of things to earn $0, by the way, Paul. That's interesting. You should have been my dad. At least I would have earned $10 or something like that a month.
Yeah.
But do you watch your child develop and not give him any guidance, or do you watch things happen and then do you redirect?
I watched, he actually was picking up stuff from everybody that was around him. And no matter who he was involved with in the business, he would pick up what a writer was doing or what somebody in the parts department was doing. And he would perfect a faster way to do it. Before long, he was earning trust throughout the entire organization. And I think that a lot of times he was wanting to know that everybody that worked for the organization knew that this wasn't just a silver spoon boy getting his spot. He earned every position he got, and he refer back to them and they'll say, "Oh boy, no, Anthony, he busted his butt for many years to get to where he is." So you let them earn it, and then these boys are smart today. As I was watching your podcast earlier yesterday about the new age of employees, it takes a different mindset now, and they've got it. Andrew and Anthony have got what it takes to attract the employees, motivate the employees. We as old school, it's different. It's way different. So
interesting, Charlie, to hear Paul say that the millennial attitudes, which I think both Paul and Charlie are, and so is my daughter Tracy, brings a refreshing view. And it's not like I don't have it, but I'm not a millennial. I'm not living in that state of being, in the state of mind, the state of technology, the state of friendships, the state of society that they are. And so importantly, is I just recently interviewed a Gen Z, a 23-year-old mechanic, to hear about what's going on with them. Why did they join the industry? What did they look forward to? So I think that whole part of young people that may take over the family business that have a different view of life than we do, you got to give them the reins to get there.
So I'll just give a quick recap and Andrew, I think, touched on it on the SOB episode. When he left home, he went off to school to play football for the Virginia Military Institute, studied business and economics. And, I thought of him at that time, honestly, I thought of him as a football player. Probably his third year in college, he started to really tell me that he had an interest in coming back home to take over or to be involved in the family business. And what I was hearing when he was saying that was he wanted to come back home. So it's funny, I put more weight on him wanting to come home as opposed to being serious about being involved in the business. Frankly, I always thought that his younger brother, Charlie, was going to be the one, because he and I understand things mechanically. I just thought that he was a natural fit. So there was this one photo of Andrew in college, and he was sitting back, hands behind his head. The picture was taken from behind him, and up on the chalkboard in front of him was a whole bunch of mathematical equations, and I looked at it and I thought, holy crap. I mean, that looks like something from Good Will Hunting. I just didn't picture Andrew in that environment. I pictured him as a football player. And come his fourth year, he was still interested in home to be involved in the business. And I'm a believer that a person needs to develop their own style, their own strengths. I don't want him to mock my style. I want him to learn and come in with his own power. So I said, that's fine. If you want to come home, that's an option, but you can't come straight home. The path to be involved in the company has a dog leg in it. You have to go work for somebody else for 3 to 5 years. And I want you to learn how other places operate, develop your own style, your own strengths. And if you still want to be involved in the company at that point, come on back. I had no idea what that was going to do. So he got a job out of college with Target Corporation in their distribution center in Waynesboro, Virginia, running a team of 20 men, twice his age. And his first discussion with me about how it operated was, I don't get it. Why can't these people just do what they're told? I thought that was hilarious to hear that from him, because, as a father, I do have felt that way.
Your plan was working.
So, simple things, if you're going to climb up into the back of a tractor trailer, You have to step on the stool. There's soft tissue damage that can happen. My job is to make sure that we have a safe work environment, blah, blah, blah. And he said, they just can't do it. They do it once, they can't do it twice. So I thought, oh, this is awesome. I mean, he's learning some skills and he's getting a taste for reality. And after a few years, he was ready to come home. He was married a terrific girl by the name of Courtney, who's also a powerhouse in business. And they came to Williamsburg. But when he joined American Pride at that point, he had an identity that he brought with him, some experience, not just school, not just what it was like sweeping the floors in the shop when he was 12, but he had been somewhere else. He'd earned a few stripes, and he got the attention and the respect of people quickly.
So both of you both Anthony and Andrew worked for someone else, Paul, or was he? I remember Anthony's story about wanting to be that. I don't know if it was an MD or a PhD or something that has to do with biology. Did he ever work in that field, or did he just say, "Enough's enough. I got to turn wrenches"?
No, in the middle of school, he would work in the summertime. He would work in his breaks and what have you. He early on, I think his freshman year at college, we needed to separate. And I said, you need to go work for somebody else. And he's like, okay. So he went and worked for a courier service in Wilmington. And it was a pretty busy operation. And
Paul, did he ask you why, Dad?
Why what?
Why should I go work for somewhere else?
We were just not. He just wasn't getting it. He was still pretty young. He wasn't through school. Dad's way wasn't always the right way. And we butted heads. And so, you know what? He went and worked for somebody. And I remember talking to his boss one time, and his boss said, oh, yeah, Anthony, oh my gosh, I've never met anybody that works like this kid. I'm like, you're talking about my kid? And through a few things that did not go well there, and they didn't treat him very well and took advantage of him quite a bit. After a couple of years, he came back to me and he says, Dad, I'm ready to come back. And you could tell he had learned plenty of lessons about, wow, it's not so bad with Dad. And working for somebody else is a lot different than I anticipated. And he did learn a lot of things there about how not to treat people. And maybe that's why he's so good with people now and attracting this younger generation. Because quite frankly, I'm not so sure that my patients can handle some of the stuff that goes on with the young folks today. I mean, I'm getting better at it, but I have to be coached in, hey, look, you can't talk to them like that. Or you can't assume that. And, hey, look, they want to do this. They don't want to do that. I'm like, all right, well, like rubber gloves that they wear in the shop. I never wore gloves. Nowadays, they wear gloves. Everybody wears gloves. And so things are changing, and I need to let him use his learnings of being outside and then coming in. And he even said to me after he got his diploma, he said, I'm sorry about all the schooling and that I'm not going to apply it. I said, oh, don't ever apologize for education. You will use that. And his writing skills, and of course, he was really good in physics and math. He uses it every day. His computer skills, I couldn't do anything he does. And he applies it every day to his work. And he's even teaching other people in the industry how to do some of the stuff. Pretty cool.
So I guess I wondered why I was in typing class in my senior year of high school.
It's because that's where the girls were.
Well, after that, number two, I had an electric typewriter and they didn't. And number three, I'm a great typist because of that. Hey, let's talk about setting short-term and long-term goals. I think this has been a great episode. I think there's a lot of people that can relate to what you guys are talking about. Been there, done that. Let's take your wisdom as to how we can set some short-term, long-term goals. Paul, I'll let you go first.
Well, the short term is, he needs to be my right-hand person, and I need to be his right-hand person. We need to work together so he can really understand in the short term how I got to where I am today. It's not all about fixing cars. I've always been about the relationships and how to treat people and how to handle different situations. Every day, something different comes up in business, and I'm sure Charlie will agree with you. And it may not be your mechanical ability or your learnings from school. It may be from experiences. So his short term is, the goal would be for him to understand it's about people and how they feel when they enter your place and leave your place. And the long-term goal is take these tools that he's learned and apply them to not only with the customers, but the people he works with, and carry the business to the next level.
Charlie, long-term, short-term. Oh, but by the way, I want to mention something to everyone here. We keep saying him, son, 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 but daughters, I'm telling you, please understand that we are not singling out your daughters at all. And in fact, some great ladies, shop owners, or daughters of shop owners we've had on the show before. And of recent, Ashlyn Kaplan recently lost her dad, but just communicated with her, and they had the greatest month they've ever possibly had in tribute to, of course, all that her dad taught her. And she's a great owner. So while we're all here, we got to teach and groom and show. So short-term, long-term goals, Charlie, that you may have set for Andrew?
So first of all, I'll second what you just said, Carm, about my daughter, Allie, who's 23. If she wasn't on her way to med school, she could step into an ownership role in a heartbeat. She is powerful and in charge, and it's no longer a guy-girl world. It is ripe with opportunity for both sons and daughters. Short, long-term goals. The short goal is to bring that person in the right manner at the right time. What I have found is to have that person to mentor causes you to be a better owner, because you're having to go through the exercise of identifying metrics, measuring things, because you want to see how they're improving, how they're moving the needle. And to have that person next to you that you're responsible for causes our performance by nature just to increase, to improve. Long-term goals is to, we see so many things coming down the track at us. Long-term is to protect our family, that the relationships matter the most. I have counseled with many business owners who have a child in the business, and I have to say that Paul and I are extremely to have the two involved in our businesses that we do. These kids, Andrew and Anthony, are just amazing. But I've seen other business owners who have brought one in, and it's a struggle. I mean, it is tough and lots of emotions. There's a huge risk to the family, a huge risk to the marriage. Those are real challenges. So the long-term goal is to protect the family. And the counseling that I've given other shop owners is be prepared to fire that person. This is an opportunity. It is not a right. If that person is not performing to the metrics that you've laid out, let them know that they can reapply. But in the meantime, you have the responsibility to many other families that work for you that become primary. And if they're not able to do the job, that's okay. You still love them as a child, but I'm going to replace you. If you want to rejoin the company, if you truly want to do better and become a part of it, reapply, and your application will be considered. If you paint the picture of, a precious, protected person, you're setting them and yourself up for failure.
Some sobering advice we just got, Paul.
Oh, yeah. And I have to agree, but not every person is cut out for this. This is not easy. This is not for the faint of heart. It can be a real struggle. I see him doing all the roles that he does every day. And I can remember I wore all those hats. And it's different today. And the stress is put on a leader can be overwhelming. And, that may not be the right position for him in the business. Maybe there's another position in the company that fits his role. And I do agree with the girls. I have two girls, and a 23-year-old and a 32-year-old, and they're rock stars. They could come in. It's just not their interest right now, and that could change. But I have to say that it's not for every person. This is not everybody saw the freedom of being in business. There's some freedom. Yeah.
Wow.
The freedom, you give up an awful lot of freedom because you're getting calls after hours. You're thinking about it after hours sometimes. Anthony and I had when he was living at home at 7:01, if we had to talk about, we did not talk about work after hours. And if we had to talk after hours, it was a real problem. So we would cut it off at 7 o'clock and know that we can carry it on the next day, unless it was an emergency. But it's a hard job.
Interesting about, you won't talk business at home, But the family dinners, the Thanksgivings, do you tend to maybe just off to the side in the corner say, remember this happened the other day, this is how I fixed it? Is that a rule?
It's a rule. We do not on the weekends. You would never know that we work together. Sometimes when I'm over with his kids, he's got two beautiful children. I'm over there playing
Yeah.
and crawling around on the ground and doing grandpop stuff, and never do we bring up work ever, because
Yeah.
this is his family time, and I had to, when I was that age, I had to be thinking about it all the time, and I don't want that for my next generation. I want them to enjoy their family life, because he puts 110% in every day that he's there. So
Great advice. Charlie, how about family time, work time, talk time?
Oh, I'm not as strict as Paul. We like to joke around about work. I do set some pretty strict boundaries with my wife. I never bring stresses from the job to her. That's not her job. She didn't sign up for that. This is my task, so I deal with stuff on my own. But as far as the kids go, there's so much comedy in what we do. We love to kind of bring those stories in. Our employees are like family. I know all of their families. I know all of their kids. And, it's an extension by right, it's an extension of my family. And we're not going to let it monopolize the dinner table. But to be honest, yes, we do talk about work, but I love it. I still love work.
I try not to with Trace, but sometimes it happens.
I will say I agree with Charlie. There are some stuff and fun stuff we'll talk about, but not serious. Hey, what's going on with this employee, or why did this person not show up? None of that.
No strategic planning.
Yeah, no, none of that.
No whiteboards.
I have to say that I wasn't as good with my home life with my wife. There would be times that I would bring it home, and we'd go to bed, and I wake up. I said, "Oh, I'm sorry, I brought that home to you. It really don't need that. You have your own career. You got kids. You got whatever it was. She was taking care of. It was an important role. She didn't need to hear my stresses. So I was not as good, but I've gotten a lot better over the years. So
I got to mention something that Charlie said about 5 minutes ago. I wrote it down. I was so impacted by it, and I want to mention it to everyone. He said, as you mentor your child, you become a better owner.
Oh, yeah. Great idea.
Very powerful, Charlie. And I think it helps put a cog in the wheel of family integrations. And that is, they're just not, set them out there. Let me see. There's some of my genetics in there, so they're really going to be good. They're going to know exactly what I was thinking at this time. They're going to act just like I act. Oh, my God, it's inbred. And that's not the case at all, because I think the amount of pressure is enormous. I remember doing a ton of things in the family business, and associates, people that we knew, came up and says, "Wow, your dad thinks you're doing great." I says, "Would you tell him to tell me?"
These are some big shoes to fill, Carm, and I know that our boys are doing their very best, and they're always looking for us to give them recognition, and you give them recognition with little tidbits from time to time, and they get it. I don't have to praise him all the time. He doesn't need a whole bunch of that, but they do need to at times say, "Hey, look, son, you're doing a great job." And
it's guidance. I know you're probably going left and right and putting him back on center when the wheels come off and all that stuff. But every once in a while, probably just a slap on the back or an extra ice cube in the bourbon.
Another tip, Harm, is a wise mentor, sometimes, especially a father, would know that their child can sometimes learn more from a good friend of the father than from the father himself, because they tend to listen more when it's somebody else saying it.
Yeah.
Both Paul and I are a member of the Transformers Institute. And rather than just having one big training class that everybody attends, the Transformers has set up training for every level within the company. So everybody within the company hears critical information that is pieced together, but by somebody else that they're more likely to listen to. So when Andrew and I first joined Transformers, we went to the owners group together. I loved it. Flying to Denver, having steak with your son in the evening, what's not to love? But they told me, we really need to separate you two, and Andrew needs to join the COO group and train with people who deal with his problems, because his problems are not your problems. You're the visionary. He's the integrator. Let him train with the integrators. So against my desire, I complied. Andrew joined the COO group. That's been transformational. We have key leaders in their key leaders group. We have foremen in their shop foreman group. Everybody's getting the same education from an institute that nobody is passing off any emotional baggage onto. Everybody goes there with open ears and comes home feeling that like they've heard this message for the first time, even though you've been saying it for the past 3 years. So education is critical, nonstop education, but letting your people hear it from people other than yourselves may be a really good tip.
I couldn't agree more with that. I'm getting ready to do the same thing with Anthony, because we're part of the group, and he's going to be moving on to join Andrew in that group for some period of time. I'm not quite sure how long, but we just joined that group, and boy, oh boy, when somebody else says it, and I've been saying it for a long time, somebody else says it's like, Dad, guess what? I've been telling you for a long time. Never mind. You know what? Just keep listening to them.
Did you tell him to say that to me, Dad? I can't believe it. The guy sounded like you, Dad.
Yeah.
So my big takeaway here is that please do not try as the dad, as the CEO, to be their number one trainer, mentor, coach. I think we do learn so much from the outside that rings ding, it echoes back inside of our world. And how I look at the power of that is it puts like hardener on the education. It puts a place in the brain that says, that thing's been floating around for so long, but boy, I got it.
It's funny you say that. We have a group we belong to, and in the beginning when Anthony and I were there, I did all the talking. And I did all the talking, and I was doing all the talking, and I was doing all the talking. And then before long, I guess one of them said, Anthony, what do you think? And so Anthony started speaking, and every meeting we had and every visit we had with this group, there were lots of people in there just like me. And before long, I just sit back and let Anthony speak for himself. And he just joined that group and is part of their mindset, and he listens to them. And I was like, okay, this is great stuff.
I'll tell you my best dad story. I had this real major issue, and I kept going over it. So I went into Dad's office and I said, listen, I got something I need to talk to you about. But could you do me a really big favor? Don't say anything until I say it's okay to say something. And so I'm going on. I kind of over in my head exactly what I thought I wanted to tell him so that I could, get a good answer from him. And I'm going in and going. It's like 4 minutes in, and I looked at him and I said, okay, thanks, gotta go. He says, but I didn't tell you anything. I says, I figured it out because you listened.
Yes.
I was able to. So yeah, it's great to be able to tell these stories post having been an SOB, son of boss. And this has been a great episode. I want to kind of conclude with, what does a handoff look like? And what are you guys dreaming about as to how this thing works and what your role in the future would be? Let's move forward some time in your thinking, Charlie.
Well, I'll pick up on what Paul was saying before we even started the recording. And that is, he really enjoys, going into work, and he's struggling with what that looks like after, the handoff. What do? I kind of enjoy going in. So one of the things that Andrew has shared with me is that the people that work with us at American Pride, I've developed a relationship with them over the years, in some cases, very much like a father or a mentor. Some of these people don't have fathers of their own. And when I walk in, today, with Andrew taking care of all the integration, I can go in there with a much easier heart. I can go in there and really be attentive while talking to people about their life. A good conversationalist is somebody who just listens, not the person who talks all the time. So being able to go in, spend time with people, let them know that you really care, that just adds fuel, to this fire that's being built within the company. And it's a very important role. While it may not be a traditional role, it's a role, if you truly love the people that you work with, it's a role that we're very privileged to have. So Andrew has freed up my time, taken so much stuff off of my plate that when I walk in, I may be just there to cook breakfast, for everybody in the shop. I may be there to listen in on something or to just be a casual observer in what takes place. But when I lean on a fender of a car and talk to somebody about what are your plans for the weekend? Oh, really? Where are you going to go? Why did you choose that place? You start to ask questions. That is solidifying that person within the company. And I'm really now a support structure for Andrew, allowing that person to be more engaged. And the next time Andrew has something to say, they're in. They're bought in because we are in this together. We are a team. So while the future of me within the company doesn't look like my future from the past 3 decades, I'm excited to give it a go and to be a really strong support structure for Andrew and his team of leaders to help supercharge what they're building.
Here's what I took away, Paul, from what Charlie just said. His role changed, and he let it. He let it. Because there's a lot of role changes that are out there, but there are some dads that or moms that refuse to. I know I got to be different, but I got to go count the money. I got to verify the reports. I got to do this. I got to. And Charlie took on the different role, and he let it happen. And your son's going to blossom because of that. And so is the company, because as you said, wow, they're looking at you completely different. And that's a role you never thought the company could benefit from.
Well, what a privilege. I'm sure that when Paul was a father, I know Paul a little bit, but I know him enough to know that he was a hands-on kind of a father. He was involved. He was in charge. As a grandfather, he's already identified that he's the kind of guy that lays on the ground, is playing with the kids. His role had changed with grandchildren as compared to with children. And his grandchildren are benefiting from that role with Paul. That's a time that they will never forget. But he can't step into, just imagine, and some of us have done this, we've certainly seen it with others. Imagine the grandparent who steps into the role with the grandchildren as the parent. How does that go? Not very well.
No.
But we get to be what a privilege. We get to be the goofy guy who hands out popsicles or who comes in and says stupid jokes, who gets to pick on them, for being, for being messy, whatever, and not have to have a whole lot of stress. But our role is very valuable in that manner.
Yeah, and you leave the kids with the parents, or you go home.
Yeah, I'll tell you, reiterating on Charlie, I'm learning this role in the business, and I go around and I ask questions. Like you said, how was your weekend? What do you got going on this weekend? Just recently, one of my guys was telling me he was out in the Midwest racing one of his cars for the last 3 or 4 days. I didn't know he was gone, but he told me, I said, that's so cool. And he talked to me about it and, how he did and what could I do to lend him some advice since I've been a racer all my life, and, letting them know that, hey, look, do you need some help with anything for your rig, or do you need anything for your trailer? Anytime you need anything. And boy, they just love that I'm just there to talk to them about their personal life and ask questions. How's your dog doing? I know your dog had surgery, and, just be concerned about them as a person really lets them know that we really care. And it's just not all about how long before you get this car done. We got another clutch job there. We got a brake job. I don't talk to them about any of that stuff. I just, like I said, I've learned this role. I'm still learning it, of how to just find out, learn a little bit about them, know a little bit more about them and their families, and encourage them to get away, because, we work for the weekends. We work for their vacations, reiterate on how important it is for them to get out a half hour early that day, because they're going away for the weekend, and I know they're going to try to beat the traffic and, enjoy your time. They love that.
Yeah, be a great listener. Find the empathy that you can get involved with your people in the changing role as you go from CEO to CEO emeritus. This was a blast, guys. I loved it. I believe sincerely that our listeners are going to value this discussion, and I think it's going to have some very important synopsis hitting inside of them. And if they don't feel that what they learned today is going to make a difference in their world, it may help them shape where they're going and how they may just integrate their family, or maybe they took a sidestep somewhere that didn't quite work out, and after hearing the advice and the wisdom from you two, they may take another stab at it and go back and and figure out how family integrates into their business. This was great. Charlie Marcotte, president of American Pride Automotive, and Paul Campanella's Auto and Tire. Now, both of their sons were on with me in Town Hall Academy 4. So if you want to listen to both perspectives and both views, they're great. They're just totally great. So thank you guys for coming on and sharing. And we just may have to put all four of us, all four of it, and the dads with me. And let's just trust me, I can come up with about 10 great questions to ask all you. So
that would be so much fun.
That'd be great.
Something that, if any of your listeners have any questions, they can reach out to me directly if they think that I might be able to shed some light on it. And the best way to reach me is by email, charlie@americanprideautomotive.com.
Perfect. Thank you so much, guys. I appreciate this. And I know you learned something. I'm talking to my listener now. I know you sure did. So now use it and go get something done with it. Thanks. Bye.